Picture this. It's Friday the 13th, October 1307, and across France, Knights Templar are being dragged from their beds in coordinated dawn raids. Their crime? Allegedly practicing dark magic, worshipping demons, and hiding sacred relics that could shake Christianity to its core. But what if I told you that the real story behind the Templars' mysterious treasures is far more incredible than any Hollywood movie has ever dared to imagine? The Knights Templar didn't just guard pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem. They became the medieval world's most powerful bank, accumulated unimaginable wealth, and according to legend, discovered secrets so dangerous that kings and popes would stop at nothing to possess them. Today we're diving deep into the shadowy world of Templar relics, the curses that supposedly protect them, and the shocking truth about what these warrior monks may have really been hiding. But before we uncover these ancient mysteries, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why Friday the 13th is considered unlucky? The answer lies in the very story we're about to explore, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why some secrets are worth dying for. The story begins in 1119 when 9 French knights approached King Baldwin of Jerusalem with a proposal that would change history forever. These men, led by Hugh de Payens, claimed they wanted nothing more than to protect Christian pilgrims traveling the dangerous roads to the Holy Land. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, taking their name from their headquarters on Jerusalem's Temple Mount, built over the ruins of Solomon's legendary temple. Now here's where things get interesting. For 9 years, these knights supposedly dedicated themselves to protecting pilgrims, yet historical records show they recruited no new members during this entire period. 9 men protecting thousands of pilgrims across hundreds of miles of treacherous terrain. It doesn't add up. What were they really doing during those mysterious 9 years? According to medieval chroniclers and later investigators, the Templars were digging. Beneath their headquarters on Temple Mount, they were conducting what can only be described as the world's first archaeological excavation, searching for something specific, something incredibly valuable that had been hidden there centuries earlier. The Temple Mount wasn't just any random location. This was the site of Solomon's Temple, the legendary repository of the Ark of the Covenant, sacred vessels, and according to some traditions, documents that could rewrite religious history. The Templars weren't just camping there, they were systematically exploring every tunnel, every chamber, every hidden corner of one of history's most sacred sites. What they found during those 9 years of secret digging transformed them from a small band of knights into the most powerful organization in medieval Europe. By 1129, just 10 years after their founding, they had gained official recognition from the Catholic Church at the Council of Troyes. Suddenly they were recruiting members across Europe, receiving massive donations and building a network of commanderies that stretched from England to the Holy Land. The speed of their rise was unprecedented. Within decades, they controlled vast territories, operated the medieval world's most sophisticated banking system, and amassed wealth that made kings jealous. But wealth alone doesn't explain their power. There had to be something else, something that gave them leverage over the most powerful people in Europe. This brings us to the heart of our mystery, the Templar relics. What exactly did they discover beneath Temple Mount, and why were these artifacts so valuable that they could transform 9 impoverished knights into Europe's financial powerhouse? The legends speak of several incredible discoveries. First and most famous is the Holy Grail, the cup used by Christ at the Last Supper and later to catch his blood during the crucifixion. But the Templars' treasure supposedly included much more. Ancient texts describe the Ark of the Covenant containing the original stone tablets of the 10 Commandments. There were references to pieces of the true cross, the crown of thorns, and even the shroud of Turin. But perhaps most intriguing are the whispered stories of documents, scrolls that contain knowledge so dangerous it could undermine the foundations of Christianity itself. Some legends claim these were the original Gospels, written by Christ's disciples, containing teachings that contradicted official church doctrine. Others suggest they found records of Christ's bloodline, proof that he had married and had children, making the entire celibate priesthood a theological impossibility. Now I know what you're thinking. These sound like fantasy stories, the kind of tales that grow in the telling. But consider this. The Templars' behavior after their supposed discoveries is consistent with people who possessed incredible leverage. They operated with an independence that was unprecedented for a religious order. They answered only to the Pope, not to local bishops or kings. They developed their own fleet, their own diplomatic corps, and their own military strategies. More tellingly, they began incorporating mysterious symbols and rituals into their practices. Templar churches were built with unusual architectural features, often octagonal rather than the traditional cruciform shape. Their ceremonies included elements that seemed to draw from older, pre-Christian traditions. Critics accused them of worshipping a mysterious head called Baphomet, of denying Christ's divinity, and of practicing magic. Were these accusations true, or were they simply the result of jealousy and misunderstanding? The truth is probably more complex than either explanation. The Templars may have discovered texts that revealed Christianity's roots in earlier mystery religions, knowledge that was spiritually enlightening but politically dangerous. In a world where the Church's authority depended on being the sole interpreter of divine truth, such knowledge was indeed heretical. The power of these relics wasn't just spiritual, it was political and economic. Think about it. If you possessed artifacts that could prove or disprove fundamental Christian doctrines, you held the medieval equivalent of nuclear weapons. Kings needed the Church's blessing to rule, and the Church needed to maintain its monopoly on religious truth. The Templars, sitting in the middle with their mysterious treasures, could potentially destroy both. This explains why their downfall, when it came, was so swift and brutal. King Philip IV of France was drowning in debt, much of it owed to the Templars themselves. Pope Clement V was weak and politically dependent on French support. Together they orchestrated one of history's most infamous betrayals. The charges brought against the Templars read like a catalogue of medieval fears: devil worship, homosexual practices, denying Christ, spitting on the cross, and most relevant to our story, possessing forbidden relics and practicing dark magic. Under torture, some Templars confessed to these crimes, though many recanted when given the chance. But here's where the curse element enters our story. According to legend, as Grand Master Jacques de Molay burned at the stake in 1314, he called down divine vengeance on his persecutors. Within a year, both King Philip and Pope Clement were dead, and the French royal line would face centuries of turmoil. Coincidence? Maybe. But the story of the Templar curse had only just begun. Because despite the order's official dissolution, their treasures were never found. The night before the mass arrests, Templar ships mysteriously sailed from the port of La Rochelle, their destination and cargo unknown. Across Europe, Templar commanderies were found empty of their legendary wealth. Where did it all go? This is where our story becomes a treasure hunt, spanning centuries. From the highlands of Scotland to the mountains of Switzerland, from the caves of Portugal to the churches of England, people have searched for the lost Templar treasures. And remarkably, some may have found them. In 1952, archaeologists exploring the Copper Scroll, found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered a detailed inventory of hidden treasures, including items that match descriptions of Templar relics. The scroll describes 64 different hiding places, most of them in the Jerusalem area, containing gold, silver, and sacred vessels. Could this be a Templar treasure map? More intriguingly, modern archaeological techniques have revealed evidence that supports some Templar legends. Ground-penetrating radar has detected extensive tunnel systems beneath several former Templar sites. In Portugal's Tamar Castle, built by the Templars, researchers have found hidden chambers that show signs of having been recently occupied when the order was dissolved. The most famous modern Templar treasure hunt centers on Oak Island in Nova Scotia, where searchers have spent millions of dollars and over 2 centuries looking for what many believe is the Templar hoard. The island features an elaborate series of flood tunnels and chambers that would have required sophisticated engineering to construct. Carbon dating of artifacts found there suggests construction in the medieval period, and symbols carved in the island's rocks match Templar iconography. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for surviving Templar relics comes from an unexpected source, the Vatican's own archives. In 2007, the Vatican published the Chinon Parchment, a document that reveals Pope Clement V secretly absolved the Templar leadership of all charges of heresy in 1308. If the Pope knew they were innocent, why allow their persecution to continue? The answer may lie in what the Templars offered to give up in exchange for this secret absolution. According to some interpretations of the document, the Templars agreed to transfer their most sacred relics to papal custody in exchange for the Pope's secret pardon. This would explain how certain artifacts that match Templar relic descriptions ended up in the Vatican's collection, including pieces of the True Cross and ancient manuscripts that are still classified today. This brings us to a startling possibility. What if the Templar relics never disappeared at all? What if they're exactly where they've always been, hidden in plain sight within the Vatican's vast collections, their true nature known only to a select few? The Vatican's secret archives contain over 50 miles of shelving, holding documents and artifacts spanning nearly 2,000 years of Christian history. Among these treasures could be the very relics that made the Templars powerful enough to challenge kings and popes. The Church's policy of keeping many of these archives sealed for centuries suggests they contain information considered too sensitive for public consumption. But the story of Templar relics isn't just about ancient artifacts gathering dust in Vatican vaults. It's about the power of hidden knowledge and the lengths to which institutions will go to protect their authority. The real curse of the Templars isn't supernatural, it's the curse of truth in a world built on carefully constructed narratives. Consider what would happen if authentic first-century Christian documents were discovered that contradicted fundamental church teachings, or if archaeological evidence proved that Christian rituals were adapted from earlier pagan practices, or if genealogical records showed that Christ's bloodline continued through medieval European nobility. The social and political upheaval would be unprecedented. This is why the Templar mystery continues to fascinate us 7 centuries after their suppression. It represents the ultimate clash between institutional power and individual truth-seeking. The Templars, whether intentionally or accidentally, stumbled upon information that challenged the foundations of medieval society. Their relics weren't just religious artifacts, they were weapons in an information war that continues today. Modern technology has given new life to Templar relic hunting. Ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis, carbon dating, and digital reconstruction have all been applied to sites associated with the order. In 2019, researchers using advanced imaging techniques discovered previously unknown chambers beneath the Templar Church of San Miguel de Lilo in Spain. Similar discoveries have been made at former Templar sites across Europe, suggesting that much of their treasure may still be waiting to be found. But perhaps the most intriguing modern development is the emergence of genetic evidence that may support some Templar legends. DNA studies of European noble families have revealed genetic markers consistent with Middle Eastern ancestry, dating to the medieval period. While this could have many explanations, some researchers suggest it might be evidence of the legendary bloodlines the Templars were said to protect. The technology that's revolutionizing Templar research is also making it more dangerous. If powerful relics or documents are discovered, their authentication and interpretation could happen faster than ever before, potentially triggering the very social upheaval the original suppressors sought to prevent. This brings us to a crucial question. Should some secrets remain hidden? The Templars' persecution suggests that medieval authorities believed certain knowledge was too dangerous for public consumption. In our interconnected world, where information spreads instantly and can destabilize governments overnight, perhaps they had a point. But there's another way to look at it. The Templar story is ultimately about the conflict between authority and inquiry, between accepted truth and hidden knowledge. Their relics, whether supernatural artifacts or simply documentary evidence of historical complexity, represent humanity's ongoing struggle to understand our past and our place in the universe. The legends of Templar relics hide something far more profound than gold or religious artifacts. They hide the story of what happens when ordinary people discover extraordinary truths, when institutional power meets individual revelation, when the official narrative collides with hidden reality. As we've seen throughout this exploration, the evidence suggests that the Templars did indeed discover something significant beneath Temple Mount, whether it was physical artifacts, documentary evidence, or simply a deeper understanding of Christianity's complex origins. Their find was valuable enough to transform them into one of history's most powerful organizations and dangerous enough to ensure their eventual destruction. The curse of the Templars isn't really about supernatural vengeance from beyond the grave. It's about the eternal human tension between what we're told to believe and what we discover to be true. Their relics, whatever they were, represented a form of knowledge that threatened the established order, and in many ways they still do. Today, as we continue to uncover archaeological evidence, decode ancient texts, and piece together the puzzle of human history, we face the same questions that confronted medieval authorities. How much truth can society handle? Who gets to decide what knowledge is safe for public consumption? And what happens when the official story can no longer contain the full complexity of human experience? The search for Templar relics continues, driven not just by the hope of finding treasure, but by our fundamental need to understand who we are and where we came from. Whether these artifacts are hidden in Vatican vaults, buried on remote islands, or waiting to be discovered in forgotten chambers beneath ancient churches, their real power lies not in what they are, but in what they represent, the unquenchable human desire to seek truth regardless of the consequences. Perhaps that's the greatest treasure the Templars left us, not gold or relics, but the reminder that some questions are worth asking, even when the answers might change everything.